Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Startup has raised $6.4 million. And you're such a good sport coming in from the area. With that, Derek, please give a round of applause. Thank you.
Please stay standing.
So I'm waiting for you to teach after this.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Can we give it up for the whole Startup Grind Sacramento team and everything that they do for entrepreneurs here? Organize, beautiful place.
It's
Brandon, everybody. Laura,
almost 5 years now.
How many?
It was almost 5 years.
Wow.
So,
Still going.
all right, so usually the first part is I just want to have people get to know you. So, like, where are you from, Derek? And, what did your parents do?
I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I've lived all over the world. I lived in Europe for 6 years as a kid, lived in New Zealand for 2 years, and then I've lived in Palo Alto for the last 13 years. And my dad had his own advertising agency, ran his own business, was kind of worked for himself and
Turn on the fire.
yeah, it's getting hot here.
Fire's kind of chatting, guys can figure it out.
And so, I watched him work for himself. It sort of seemed like a good path to follow, and so that's what I did.
So, when I'm going through your LinkedIn, your first startup was Vapor Labs. Tell me what that was about.
Yeah, Vaporware Labs was my first company. For the engineers in the room, probably think what a horrible name for a company. That was just sort of an incubator for some of the ideas that my co-founder and I had. I built a social media product, I built a social networking product, I had like a mobile apps consultancy for a while, built products for lots of other people. I built that's what you do.
Unfortunately,
You're much better at it than I ever was. I raised $250,000 at one point and built an iPad game, which failed spectacularly. I didn't return a single dollar of that. And then Startup Grind sort of started out of that as well. We started hosting events much smaller than this in my office in Mountain View, and people liked it, much to my surprise.
So tell me, how did Startup Grind come up? You had mentioned it. Why did you have people come in? Why did you invite people to come in to meet?
Well, I started my career in electronic arts. I worked there as a product manager. And when you work for a big company, they spend all this money, to educate you and to improve your skills. And when I left, and I was on my own in a crappy office by myself, nobody invests anything in you, and so you just have yourself. So me and a friend of mine, we just started bringing our mutual friends together, and we were brainstorming and sharing ideas, and we called it Startup Grind because that is sort of what the startup felt like to me as an entrepreneur. And some people that don't understand it, that aren't entrepreneurs, they think it's really negative. Why would you have a negative connotation with your brand? It should be aspirational or positive or whatever. But for entrepreneurs, we know it's not negative. It just means it's like working out, doing CrossFit or whatever. You're grinding through it, and to see this improvement on the other side, to really create something, to build something. And I listened to a lot of rap music in college and high school, and grinding it out is it's the way in athletes and things. That's how they talk about really getting better and building something, whether it's yourself or a product. So that's why it sort of spoke to me.
So you're doing this. So while you had Vapor Lab, you basically were doing how often did you have this meetup? This Startup Grind meetup?
Once a month.
Okay, it's like us. And at what point at some point, so what happened to Vapor Labs? Let's start there.
I shut it down at some point. It was a really terrible name. Vaporware, for those in the software world know that Vaporware is basically like a product that gets announced and never actually ships. And so when you're selling your services to people, I should build an app for you. Oh, what's your company called? Vaporware Labs. It's doesn't really build a lot of confidence.
You can call it a bug.
shiplap. So, you know, I left EA, I quit EA in the middle of the summer of 2009. It was the middle of the Great Recession, and I felt like I needed to leave and start building stuff, and the first idea I had was terrible, and it flopped completely. And so I just sort of went on to the next idea, and you know, entrepreneurs that are just getting started, we always, like, you juggle a lot of ideas and balls in the air, but the goal is not to have lots of things to work on, at least it wasn't for me. It's to really focus on one thing, but until you have something that starts to take off, you kind of need to juggle. Well, a mistake a lot of people make is when you finally get something that has some energy, some kernel of, like, this could be something, they keep juggling, and really you need to, like, discard the balls as quickly as possible and just focus and, like, try and grow that flame as much as you can. So, you know, when Startup Grind started to take off, we spun that out just as a new entity, and then we said, hey, let's just, that's working, let's just focus totally on that and sort of burn the boats of the past and keep going.
Really, so, wow, so you basically, your whole, at that point it was just you, right? Or it was just the Silicon Valley chapter, or at that point did you have other chapters?
Yeah, we were doing the Silicon Valley chapter for about a year and a half, and hundreds of people started coming to the events, and then people would walk up to me after and say, like, this guy from LA walked up and said, this is really cool, I love your values, I love the brand, I love, like, what you do, can I do this in LA? And I was like, it's just a meetup, bro. Like, you can just host a meetup, you don't need me to help you with that, like, just go to meetup.com and pay $12 a month. And he's like, no, like, I want to be part of what you're doing, your movement. I'm like, we don't have a movement, it's just a meetup, I already explained that. And so, but he convinced me. And so I went down there, I, like, got my friend to speak, who started this company that was very successful. I did the interview, and then it worked. People, like, really, they're like, there's nothing like this in LA. I'm like, it's LA, it's huge. Like, how could there not be something like this in LA? But it worked. And then we started doing it in New York, and then I was meeting with a mentor of mine, and you know, he's like, you know, this product that you're working on, like, that you're building, and I was putting all my money into it. He was like, I don't know about that product, like, nobody really likes it, and you spend 29 days of the month on it, but this thing you're spending 1 day of the month on, Startup Grind, like, it's really cool. And people, like, it seems to have this, like, unnatural, like, inertia or energy. And that's what I found with good ideas, is it's like the ball, like, you always have to push the ball uphill, but at some point the ball starts rolling downhill a little bit for you. And there's lots of ideas that I've worked just as hard on at Startup Grind, that the ball never got over it never crested. And so it was always just like, you're pushing the ball up and it's just constantly crushing you. But Startup Grind wasn't like that, so I started spending, like, instead of 1 day a month, I started spending, like, 5 days a month, and then 10 days a month. And then eventually we sold this product we were working on, which basically just extended us for about 8 more months of runway. And then we just went full on Startup Grind. And then at that time, when we did that, we were in about 5 cities. And then within 8 months, we were in, like, 35. And it really, like, I mean, we worked really hard. Me and my co-founder Joel and Francisco Cruz, who's here tonight, the three of us worked very hard, but honestly, like, if there was demand for it, and I would say, like, the most important thing we ever did was we put a link that said start a chapter on our website, and within the next day we had 2 submissions. I was, like, shocked. But it took us, like, 15 minutes on WordPress, like, add a page, start a chapter, and that ended up, you know, now we get 150 people apply a month to start a chapter, but we've never marketed it. It's just, like, again, just right from the beginning, people, like, they found it, and they were sort of drawn to the ethos and what we were doing.
The guy that was your mentor that said, you know, is he the reason that you actually stopped, you know, that you decided to actually focus on Startup Grind as a business?
The conversation I had with him was very important, because I was really discouraged and down because this thing I had put all my money into was failing, and we were working really hard on it. We had about 70,000 users. It was sort of like it was like this social networking thing. So, like, had a little bit of traction, but, like, not enough to really get anybody excited about it, like investors or anything. It didn't have a revenue model. So I was sort of, like, really, like, was, like, losing all my money on it. And he, like, that conversation sort of shifted my focus, like, oh, maybe he's right. Like, maybe there is something special with this Startup Grind thing. at that point, we never like captured lists, we never like tried to market it, we never tried to do anything. We just like put it up online and like tried to get great speakers and have fun. And you know, we played rap music really loud at the events. We don't do that anymore, which I wish we would. You know, we just kind of like had fun. It's just like our thing to do. And you know, surprisingly, people wanted to be a part of it.
You know, one of the things I was always very impressed with is the speakers that you bring to Startup Grind. How do you manage to get all those great speakers?
Well, these people would, you know, we've had people like, for those that don't know, we have people like the founders of LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Clay Christensen from Harvard, all sorts of great people. But the reality is we didn't start with those people. Started with like my friends, anybody I could convince to come. And then slowly as the audience grew, we convinced better people to come. And then what I realized is like these people wouldn't meet with me, this is how it all started. Like they wouldn't meet with me about my startup, but they would meet with me with Startup Grind. It's like I wanted to learn from them. And so it's just basically like an excuse to like get interesting people into a meeting with me, and I would just do it in front of 100 people. And it was super selfish. But it ended up like creating all these really cool outcomes. Like I learned from them. So like I always say, like Startup Grind is the greatest success of Startup Grind is Startup Grind, because we sucked at building companies before Startup Grind. But then like we heard all this advice over and over again, and we'd go home that night and be like, freak, like that was really smart. Like why aren't we doing that, or why aren't we doing that? So that's why I like encourage you to keep coming to Startup Grind, even if you start to get successful. Like keep coming and keep learning, because I know like I don't know, you can't learn at a Startup Grind talk. Like then something's wrong with you. So but slowly it was always like, okay, how do we get, like we're here, we want to get here, like let's just get somebody that's a little bit better, and a little bit better. And then, you know, and sometimes it's like, that seems like a really cool company, and we invited like the founders of Stripe to speak after they raised their Series A. And they agreed to speak, and they're now over $20 billion. They were, you know, they raised $5 million when we asked them to speak the first time.
It's kind of like you. You just raised a Series A, so.
I'm not running a $20 billion company.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's just like some of it was, you know, we cold email them, and they would say yes, because we made it really easy, and that's why we do Fireside Chat, because doing a presentation is hard for people, and it requires a lot of work, like a TED Talk, it's a lot of work. So Startup Grind is really easy. They can come in, hang out for an hour, meet a bunch of people, and then they go home. So all those things were optimized around making good for the speakers.
Did you, Startup Grind, was that just, did you get any investment, or was it all like grown organically?
Yeah, we just bootstrapped it.
Okay. And you know, one of the things that I think, and I don't know if this is the case, but I think the partnership with Google made help you stand out. Was that something hard to? Was that a big achievement in terms of making that partnership?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Doing a partnership with Google feels like a big achievement.
Because I talked to some people that have tried, and they can't even get into the front door.
Yeah.
For that. Did they approach you? You approached them?
I mean, I sort of approached them. You know, there were other people that we didn't get partnerships with, so that's one of the good ones. There's lots of ones that we were unsuccessful with. The thing I tried to do with them was just like, I never approached Google until like we had something really cool. We had hosted 250 events. We were in, you know, 40 cities or whatever before we ever even approached them. And that, when we came in, it was like, oh wow, why aren't we working with you? And it was like, yeah, no, that's what we think. And so, you know, versus like, hey, can you like help us? And then we can build something cool together. It wasn't like that. And so I think, another thing they said was Francisco and I, after we pitched them, we came back and we were like, what? They were like, let's talk in 4 months. We're like, we can't wait 4 months. Like, we need to get this thing going. And so we're like, we emailed them like, hey, we have an event in like 8 weeks, which we didn't. And we're like, could we host it at your office? Just to like do something together. And they're like, yeah, sure. So we're like, oh crap, we gotta get a speaker. So then we got a speaker, and then I've heard the person that we were working with at the time, who's spoken here before, actually, John Lyman, he said that at that event, after it was over, Francisco and I were picking up pizza, all like the old pizza crust and stuff that people left on their seat, cleaning up all the trash. And he was like, man, that's really cool. Like these people are like, that's who we want. We want people that will pick up old pizza crust off the floor to work with. And so then like from there, like it actually moved really naturally, and over like 4 months, 5 months, They then came to Powers. They just rebranded to Google for Startups. Yeah, we've been working with them for 6 years.
And by the way, your whole pizza story I've heard before.
Yeah.
And so I actually always make sure that, after you guys are off and on, I make sure that the place is cleaned up.
And that's really to encourage you to leave your trash on this one. The more trash you leave, the better we feel about
Yeah, we're actually doing work. So
how much we're hustling. So yeah, just leave everything.
What's interesting is you do have it's a global organization. And what has been some of the challenges of having working with 500 cities from different nationalities and et cetera? Any interesting stories there?
A lot of personalities. Running a volunteer organization is not like running like an employee-based organization, because you can if you don't like what somebody's doing, or you don't think they're doing their job, you can fire somebody, or hopefully you can give them a lot of feedback, and they're getting paid to do the job. So with volunteers and people that are like really just bought into the mission of it, you can never yell at a volunteer, and I really almost never yelled at a StartGrind director. The very few times I have, they absolutely deserve it. And doing something very shady, I will yell at somebody for. But other than that, I'm just very grateful to be part of what all these amazing people are building across the world. We're in Sacramento tonight, but this month we'll have this exact same kind of event about in 150 cities or 200 cities, something like that. They're hosting events. And so, it does StartGrind, does a lot of good for a lot of people. And to me, it'll always just be like a meetup in a garage, but it's amazing to see what it's done. And yeah.
So what about, I think one of the things, and I have a couple, I had mentioned any really good connection stories that occurred at StartGrind?
We've had lots of interesting stories, lots of good things that have come. Anybody ever heard of Tufton Needle mattresses? You ever heard anybody sleep on one of those? I do. There was 2 engineers at an event in early 2011 that attended StartGrind that were getting educated to that. They decided to leave the valley and move to Arizona. They started a mattress company called Tufton Needle, and huge company. They just sold for like $700 million, something like that.
Whoa. I
bumped into them in Arizona. I didn't even know them, but I bumped into them and I said, hey, your company's amazing. I'm buying one of your mattresses. And they said, hey, StartGrind we attended early StartGrinds. It made a huge impact on us. It helped sort of frame what we wanted to do. And, we really are grateful for that. So that's a story that we're really proud of. The directors who run these chapters, one of the best parts about being in StartGrind is these directors have this sort of network of people that nobody sees unless you're in it. But, we've really connected people around the world, and we have, people in Israel, and people in Palestine, and people in Iran, and people in Somalia, and these in the United States, and these different countries that sort of just historically don't get along. And we're all sort of united through this common cause of helping entrepreneurs and sort of helping, elevate ourselves out of, into a better place. And so, really
So,
proud of it.
actually, maybe if you talk about one of the
Sure.
projects. So, back there we have Todd with Linked, and they actually had attended the StartGrind event in Southern California.
Yeah.
And they didn't make the, I guess there was the top 20 where you got kind of investors or something like that.
I wasn't on the voting committee, so.
But you liked what you saw.
Of course, I would have put it in the top.
But, so the thing is, you gave them a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know if Todd, you want to talk about the challenge? And then, I actually had some follow-up questions.
Derek came up to us. Why he came up to us, I don't know. There were 50 companies in the room, and he walked right up to us. And opened up my laptop and started playing around with the app and said, basically, this is vaporware. There was no app, and it was a bunch of Photoshop images inside of a container that was a mean stacking JS application. So anyway, for whatever reason, he gave me a challenge and he said, look, I think you're onto something here. Go out, find 5 companies that want your product, have them write you a check for $5,000. Tell them you're not going to cash the check. If you get 5 companies to give you $5,000, then I'll help you raise money. So went outside, started making some phone calls, and ended up raising $400,000 from the phone calls. And a couple days later, I emailed Eric and I sent him an email and said, you know what, I'm good. We don't need money. Thanks. And I said, but you know what? How about Startup Grind Global? That'd be awesome to get into. So anyway, that was the challenge that he put us through back in October of 2016. So and since then we've raised 1.8 million. We're based out of Rancho Cordova, and we've got a full team of developers, sales, everything out of Rancho Cordova.
Yeah, and maybe most impressive, you have 2 of the top 10 construction companies in America that use your product.
Yes.
So,
we have 2
pretty
companies.
amazing.
One's in the top 10 largest construction. The other's top 3 architectural firm in the United States that is that's currently using our platform, and they're using it on a project actually here in Sacramento, Centene project, which is in the Thomas City. So.
Let's give it up for Todd.
Do you do this often? Like you give this challenge out to other startups?
I challenge people to do stuff, but Todd's really impressive. I mean, it's all on Todd. Like, he gets all the success. It was easy for me to, like, challenge him to do something, but he actually, like, went outside and made the phone calls and made it happen. So
do you give this challenge a lot, or is it,
no, the thing that's great with Todd is I can tell he can take it, because a lot of people were, even me, like, I'm very thin-skinned in some regards, and like, your product is your baby, and but I could tell he was a tough guy, and he just wanted it to work. And so I can't remember if I said this or not, but I think I did, like, can you take some real feedback right now? And that's how I kind of prepare people sometimes. But I wouldn't say it if I didn't think he could have. And but he could, and he's a smart guy, and he's built a great team. And and he had this. A lot of times people say, like, a lot of investors will say, like, why are you the best person in the world to solve this problem? And Todd is actually incredibly well suited and one of the best people probably in the world to solve the problem that he's solving. And so and he's also very capable and smart. And so that kind of combination is pretty rare. And I'm just really thrilled for them. And I think they're just right at the beginning. It's gonna be a long road, but they've got a great start. So good for them.
So, of all the interviews, and you've probably done, let's say, hundreds of interviews?
150.
150. What are some of the wisdom you've gathered, or maybe it was a common theme that you've seen through your interviews?
One time I was interviewing this guy named Vinod Khosla, who's been in the news quite a bit over a beach situation that he had.
Khosla Ventures?
What's that? Khosla Ventures. Yeah, he started Sun Microsystems, and he was one of the original investors in Google and Excite, and lots of other stuff, Square. And anyways, we were at Google having this event, and an engineer there was like, hey, I'm an engineer at Google. Should I, like, I'm thinking about leaving my job, like, but I'm a little worried because it's really risky, and my parents, and are going to be worried, whatever. And he sort of looked at him and he's like, well, you're an engineer at Google, like, you can always work at Google again, like, very easy to do. You've already proved, like, you're an intelligent, capable person. Like, the biggest risk you have is not trying to do the company. And that's a very interesting, different way of thinking about it. And I never worked at Google, so, like, but I sort of always knew, like, I knew I was employable. And that's sort of why I started my career at EA, was just to, like, make sure I was employable. And, but, life is short. And I've got a friend of mine who's my exact age, who is on death's door about to die of cancer. And, it could have been me as much as it was him. And I sort of live in a way that I'm not going to be around forever. And so I don't really live recklessly, but just that, like, I try to make decisions that, that if I were to go, then, I mean, look at everything that's happening in California right now. I was just in Malibu at my brother's house. I was in Malibu this weekend. His house almost went up in flames. And, he could have died. You just don't, and there's all these people, not too far from here. You just don't know. So you live life, or I try to live life to the fullest. And, take the risks I can take and live with no regrets. And that doesn't mean like I go to Ibiza every month and then party like crazy, but it does mean that I'm not putting things off. I have 4 little kids. I haven't put off my family. I haven't put off, I've been married for 12 years. I found somebody that I love. I didn't put it off. I've attacked the startup thing, and I haven't put it off, and I'm glad I didn't, because it only gets harder. And so, I hope I'll be around for a long time, because I got a lot I want to do. But if I'm not, I'm like, I've done everything I can do.
There's a good meme in there somewhere.
Is there?
Yeah. Okay, so we have, you created Bevy from a product that was created internally for Startup Grind. Was that the goal, or that just happened?
About 4 years ago, people like Rich, who were putting in blood, sweat, and tears into running these chapters, were starting to really get angry with us because the tools that we had built for them were really, really bad. We had sort of built on top of things that were never meant for the way this network that we were running, with all these distributed people and distributed cities and all this stuff. And so, we kind of ignored it for 8 months of people really if you don't fix this, I could leave. They're like, yeah, whatever, it's not that bad. It's it takes 20 seconds to load the page. It's bad. And so eventually we sort of got wise to it and decided, I looked at all the solutions that were available, and I realized, I kind of came to find out, this problem that we're trying to solve was going to cost us about $150,000 a year, and I was going to have to sign a 3 or 4 year contract in order to get software. And that software, that software, was going to solve about 60% of our problem. So here I am, I'm going to spend $500,000 over the next 3 or 4 years, and it's not even going to really solve it. So me and my co-founder and another person that joined the team, who became the co-founder of Bevy, the other co-founder, we decided we would build it. We'd probably invest, $500,000, but we do it in 2 years, and then we own it. We'd run it for 10 years. And so for 1 year, we just sort of built this product. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's an enterprise software product. It's complex. There's emails, there's events, there's all these different things, permissions, and all these different things. And then after a year, we came out and we unveiled it to the community as the first user of this thing. The 4 directors had to beta test this thing for about 6 months before it sort of got into a stable place.
You complained.
More great feedback. More great feedback about why it still wasn't there. But you could kind of feel there's light at the end of the tunnel. And then after that, I showed it to somebody who ran a smaller community than ours, but like ours, and he said, the first person I showed it to said, I've used that, how much is it? And I was like, I don't know.
So you seriously didn't think of that, spinning it off as a it was just for...
because we had to solve it for us, and the feedback was so overwhelming that I knew that if we didn't solve it, we would lose Startup Grind. And we stopped growing, we stopped being able to do what we need to do, everything sort of came to a screeching halt. So no, that was purely the motivation of it. And it was just an investment. Me and Joel said, we'll just invest it and Startup Grind can run for 10 years. And you know what, maybe it's the same size, maybe it grows, but at least people will not be screaming at us. And so, so yeah, so that first person, and he said, well, how much is it? And I said, I don't know, like, how about 20 grand a year? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. I was like, dang it. And then it cost us $40,000 to get them onboarded. It took 8 weeks for a whole team of like 8 people to do it. And we ripped it out of Startup Grind, we white labeled it, and then next thing I know, I'm in a discussion with Atlassian, who's the maker of Jira and Trello, if you're familiar with them, and they needed a solution. And we heard about this like on a Thursday. We were going to get the pitch on Monday, and they had been bringing in other software, and we just worked straight the whole time, all weekend, and we built an instance for them, and we created this thing, and we pitched it, and they loved it. And to my shock, like they were using a product that had 15 million in funding, a 40-person team, and they were like, we'll switch and we'll use you. We're like, really? Like, cool. And they were like, what's the product called? And I was like, I don't know, like Startup Grind Dashboard. Like, call it like that. She's like, right as we're trying to sign it, she's like, I'm trying to show it to like the president of the company. Like, where's your website? I'm like, just send it to Startup Grind. Like, we don't have a website. So they signed up, and then we signed up a couple of their customers, and then it was like, hey, this is a thing. And so I was sort of paying for it with Startup Grind. It's sort of like starting to weigh Startup Grind down, and so I needed to get it out, and so that's when we approached a few friends to invest in it, and just so that we could spin it out and take the engineering team out and to sort of work totally on Bevy. And so we raised some money in the summer of 2017 to do that, and then we went and got more customers and got more traction, and built the product, and then we raised a little bit more money last summer, and and have continued to grow the team and try to build it into something that people find useful.
So, you probably have one of the best Rolodex ever since, doing what you do. And when you're raising money, how did you select the people that you raised it from, or the pitch to?
I just emailed people that I really respected and liked and appreciated, and people that have been good to me. I sort of felt like we had something really cool, and that I felt it had all the sort of signals of something like you've got customers paying for it, you've got a really good engineering team, you've got really great customers paying for it. So that's, and this is something with Todd, to have like, if you're a small company and you can get really great customers to buy in, they can pick anything. That's such a huge indicator, and of course you get to use the logos and everything, but just like, that's like huge bells going off in your head when somebody says that. And so yeah, I just talked to a few friends and people that I have built relationships with over the last 5 or 6, 7 years, and thankfully a few of them said that they would invest. A couple of them just replied to my email and said, I'll invest $100,000, because I had spent a lot of time cultivating relationships and helping people, and I've never asked people for money. I don't like asking people for money, and I'm not an investor. And I think they saw this email like, okay, I've spent a lot of time around Derek, and I know he's not a bad person, hopefully, and I think he's gonna take good care of my money, and maybe I get his idea, maybe I don't, but like, it's an angel investment, so we'll see. We'll sort of roll the dice and see what happens. And
Just from email alone.
not all of them, but I mean, other people said no from email. But this is the other thing, is like, you can't get, and I say this to myself too, like, you can't get too offended when people don't respond to your email or they reply no or whatever, because literally, like, I have people that I know that I would like hug if I saw them, and like, they said no to me in an email. They would not even meet with me, and like, it's like, we have revenue, we have a cool team, we are the best people in the world to solve this problem because I've been working on this problem for 8 years. So like, it's all these cool like indicators of potential success, and they wouldn't even meet with us. And I was just like, one person did, and I was like, I kind of laughed. I was just like, hey, like, just like a one-line response, like, you should keep bootstrapping. And I was like, that's cool. Can you just tell me why you would say that? And he was, and he gave his reasons, and I was like, you didn't even read the deck. Like, and then at the end of it, he's like, hey, well, like, you know, like, well, why don't we meet, talk about it, like after like a long email exchange, and I was like, it's cool, like I don't think if I'm like really desperate, like I would, but like, I don't want to work with somebody that acts like that. So, it's okay, but like, you're not, I thought we were like, even my friends and I think because we were friends we would meet, and you just try and help, but like, we're not that way, you know? So, anyways, and I have to like fight myself on it too. You can hear me like sort of conflicted on it. Like people that I have helped and been good to, who would not even meet with me. Like it burns. But think about then the extreme of people that you don't know, or that you're cold emailing, or that you're like just like blindly sending some random email that you haven't even crafted and spent time being thoughtful about. You can't. Investors, like, you can't expect them to like jump at things. Things like that. So you gotta kind of like, hopefully build relationships, hopefully, invest in people, invest in helping, and those are our ethos, of doing these kinds of things. And if you do, I think it eventually sort of works out. Maybe not always the way you hope or plan, but, the world is small, it all comes back around at some point.
So in terms of product market fit, it seems like your product's more geared for the enterprise, is that?
Yeah, it's geared for, so basically like, we help people build communities in real life. So if you, we call it customer marketing. If you have a customers that are interested in sort of believe in what you're doing, and they want to sort of use your brand to then talk to other customers, they get value out of that, and there's, this sort of value exchange of like, we can take the 1% of customers that are really excited about your product, and then they can help sort of draft it down to the 99%. And every big tech company in the world does this, Google, Oracle, Salesforce, Atlassian, other people. And they do it because, this dissemination of misinformation online, of fake news, I read this study this last week that 30% of millennials in Europe don't trust what they read online. This is getting worse, Can we trust Amazon reviews? Can we trust Yelp reviews? I don't really trust them anymore. But when one of my friends or when I hear a human being say, hey, I really love this product, or this is how this product helped me, that has a big impact on me. And so we help companies do that at scale. And so like Salesforce uses us to run, 1,000 of their communities. Or Duolingo, if you know them, they're a language mobile application. They host 1,000 events a month where people get together to learn a language. And these are run by their community, and they never even did this program before they worked with us. So, we have universities that use it for their alumni program to have their alumni meeting together. So, honestly, like, there's all sorts of random use cases that I had no idea it even existed until we started talking to people. We just solved it for ourselves, and it's turned out to be something that other people find valuable.
So I have it's Brenda here, I'll just point it out. She was working on starting up her own women in tech meetup.
Oh, great.
I actually showed her, I said, well, why don't you look at Bevy, because, she wants to expand. And her feedback was, it's too expensive.
Yeah, I love the product, love the interface, and obviously I'm using meetup.com, and just completely different. And I asked Rich, I said, I'd love to use this because I started the group and immediately got 100 members overnight. And Rich was like, you need to think about expanding this nationwide. Like there's a need for women to come together in the tech biz ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about Bevy. He's like, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
So the question is,
I didn't know how much it cost, but I have
Yeah.
no idea.
do you
So maybe
have-
it's not.
Well,
yeah, so I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, so congratulations, and our, again, the way that we built it, we didn't build it with the idea of let's have hundreds and thousands of customers use
Right,
this thing.
right.
So at the moment, it's still a little bit of hands-on for us to get
Yeah.
people going and working, and so it's not $12 a month. So
Right.
yeah, it's definitely not. It's the cheapest product. And at the same time, with Meetup, you don't own any of your data. It doesn't look like your brand. There's all sorts of things that you sort of, there's all these great things about Meetup. We use Meetup too, but doesn't exactly solve the problems that we've had in building these communities. So, but I think, at some point, I think every community that's doing something, building a community in real life, like I think they'll all use Bevy. But at the moment, it's definitely sort of, there's an emphasis on people that are trying to scale it.
Right.
And so for me, like even in early startup grind days, my co-founder is a developer, so every month, we're paying a full-time developer to be on the team. What was he doing? It's an event, media thing. Well, we were just building cool stuff. And so in my mind, I've always tried to invest in technology because I know I can't be in all these places and I have little kids and I want to be home for dinner, and technology helps sort of expand what I can do. And so there's definitely there's definitely an investment that has to be made if you want to be in 10 or 20 or 30 cities. If not, you just won't sleep.
Right.
And I really like sleeping. So
Thanks for missing dinner.
it's worth, to me, it's worth the, and I'm not saying it's not to you, but that's to us is it's definitely not, it solves much bigger problems than $12 a month. And so if people don't feel like they have those problems, then I would say, then we're not a good fit. You shouldn't use us. Because we have a lot of other people that do pay a lot more than that I hope, feel like they're getting a really good deal.
Right, no, I get it. Enterprise is your target audience, but, just to say that we can't have a conversation in the future about maybe looking at some other pricing
For
strategies.
sure, yeah, no, let's talk right after this,
Yeah.
for sure. We want people that want to scale their communities.
Right.
And they could be small or they could be in a big company or not a big company. I want to work with the best communities in the world who want to go from 20 to 200. Those are the ones that are exciting to us. We don't care what company or what logo they are, but just if they want to grow and do it at scale, we want to work with 100% of those companies right now. Yeah.
So what's interesting is that you now are the CEO of 2 organizations. How do you manage that?
I have great teams.
And not enough sleep, apparently.
No, I sleep. I haven't slept this week because I drove down to Malibu on Saturday, you just have great people do great things. So I have amazing operators, and we have people that are better at selling than I am, and we have people that are amazing engineers, and so I'm probably not great at both, but the team helps me make it work, and I'll do it as long as people will allow me to do it. If people don't want me to do it, I'll have to just do one. Hopefully I can do one. Hopefully they don't want me to do either, or then I can find something else. I love both. So.
All right. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up questions to the audience. We got one from Francisco.
Yeah, so I recently graduated from UC Davis, and I have a lot of friends who are trying to get jobs right now, and they're all going on LinkedIn. And an interesting kind of trend is happening in LinkedIn, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, of a lot of entrepreneurs kind of talking about their struggle and how they eat nails for breakfast at 4 in the morning and then work till 2 in the morning and get up and do it again. And recently someone came out with a blog post called, Stop the Struggle Porn, which is this whole glorification of, not sleeping and
Did you say struggle porn?
struggle porn. Yeah, it's on the Medium post. I don't want to call any of the people called out in the article, but what are your thoughts? You've been doing this for many years. You've had a few different companies. About the people, as small as oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to be working. I just have so much to do. And then you as an entrepreneur, you're just oh, maybe I should be working. Maybe I shouldn't be hanging out with my kids or, sleeping or, eating a square meal. Maybe I should be working too. What are your thoughts on the balance between working very hard and kind of the camaraderie of working hard and being part of an entrepreneur mindset and working yourself to death or to the point where your company is dead, but you're just if I struggle as hard and if I eat enough nails, then maybe, I'll also have Facebook.
It's a great question.
I'm not even sure what the question
Said from the person that has probably spent more time with me working, or spent more time with me in the last 6 years than anyone but my wife. Poor guy. As Francisco and I were in the garage for 2-something years, 2.5 years maybe, much of that alone, just eating nails, as you put it. Look, like, the first thing is, like, your startup will almost certainly fail, because your startup is a dead body on the operating table to begin with, and you almost certainly not be able to bring it back to life. So, that's the first thing you gotta just accept. And it took me a few of those to accept that. And at the same time, like, this is what a lot of people, like, to get it alive, you do have to work really, really hard. So I'm not gonna apologize for working really hard sometimes. I'm very ambitious, and I'm very competitive. And it's also not an excuse for me to, like, be a bad dad or be a bad husband, because, like, I am sleep deprived, and sometimes those two things can correlate. Like, I can have a bad, like anybody, I don't have to be an entrepreneur, to have a bad day and come home and, like, be short with my 9-year-old or something. I'm not proud of that, but it happens. And so I think the thing that I've always said is, like, my startup will almost surely not be successful. So, like, I gotta make sure that I take care of the other things too, because when it all falls apart, I don't wanna be, like, miserable and alone. And so, like, and that happens to, you work so hard, like, balance is not equal. Like, I'm in a stage of life where I'm working a lot harder now than I will work in 20 years. That's why I'm working so hard, so I don't have to work so hard in 20 years. But, like, it doesn't mean, like, I have to spend exactly the same amount of time with my family as I do at work, or, like, on stuff I'm doing, like, in my community or my church or other stuff. Like, they kind of ebb and flow. And so, like, balance does not mean equal. But balance means, like, sometimes I just don't go to work because I just, like, need to spend it with my wife. Or actually, I don't do it very much, but I should. But sometimes I'll take a vacation when I feel like I should work, and I do that with my wife. And we're gonna do that in 3 weeks. And, like, I couldn't do that if I wasn't an entrepreneur. I couldn't just leave and just, and do something like that. But I work really hard to, like, make sure my kids don't hate me, make sure my wife doesn't hate me, make sure I don't, like, lose my values or things that are dear to me, while also working very hard. And but balance is not equal. Sorry. But we have this freaking thing called startup grind. Like maybe we're part of the problem, I don't know. But, like, you can't expect something, your startup to get itself out of, become alive, get out of ICU, get out of the emergency room, rehabilitate itself, start learning to talk and walk again, and then eventually run without doing some really freaking hard work. So it doesn't mean you do it at the expense of everyone that loves you and the things you hold dear. But I kind of get close to that line sometimes. And, find me in 10 or 20 years. And hopefully I haven't ruined those things. But, it happens. And so I say that to say, like, I say this to put me on public notice. Like, I don't want to go to jail, hate me, and I don't want my kids to not want to be around me when I'm older. So that, to me, is the balance part with, like, also, like, I want this thing to work. And I will do anything I can do within the law and with my values and within those people, the people I care most about not hating me, to make that happen. Don't hate them. All right.
So how do we get selected to pitch at Startup Grind
Oh, gosh.
next year?
You got a hard
Be an
question.
exhibitor.
We have a startup program where we feature 200 to 300 startups every year at our global conference in February in Silicon Valley. We'll have about 8,000 or 9,000 people attend that this year. Founder of Airbnb, LinkedIn, and all sorts of other nice companies, Stripe, we talked about them earlier. We'll speak at that. There's a vetting process of startups that we look at the same things that probably other people look at. Product, team, market. And if you over-index on some of those things, then you get included. And I'm happy to, if somebody feels like they're not getting the right attention or they weren't looked at fairly or whatever, like you said, I'm at Derek@startupgrind.com. It's my only email address for Startup Grind. And, I'm happy to take a better look at it. So
I think I thought there's a link on the website.
oh yeah. Startupgrind.com/start.
Did you find it?
Is the application process open already?
Most definitely.
Because Brenda said you couldn't find it.
No, I just did a cursory look, I'll go.
Okay.
And we can connect.
Do you know, I don't know if you know this,
Yeah.
but has anybody applied to start a chapter in Reno?
Yes.
I live up at the lake, so that's where.
Yeah, I don't know that we've really had a very active chapter there, but.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
do they have one?
no, I don't think we have one right now.
I was wondering, it's in a weird phase,
Is that right?
I'm sure
Yeah.
that you guys will have one there eventually, but.
Yeah.
It's, hit and miss. Some events are a lot of people like this, and then
Yeah.
some events are just like 5 people.
Yeah,
And you're like, whoa. So I just wondering,
yeah, maybe we should do it. We do them in lots more cities than
Reno's
Reno.
up and coming.
yeah, we're getting there, we're trying.
In Reno.
We're trying. Truckie's trying really hard too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's some cool meetups going on there, but nothing, I think the format is just much more appropriate for some of the startups that are there.
Yeah,
A lot of the formats don't involve networking
yeah.
as part of it, and that's kind of anyways.
Yeah, we always said, like, it's Startup Grind, hopefully you got something out of hearing us talk for 45 minutes, but if you didn't, if you don't meet somebody and, help someone else and build your network, you kind of failed, because you could go listen to talks on YouTube and just sit at home, and sort of browse between Netflix and Startup Grind YouTube channel. But you're here, you've given us 2 or 3 hours of your time, you've parked, you probably had a little road rage on the way over. Get your value out of it and help somebody. So meet the people next to you, don't be too cool, don't pitch their freaking brains out. Just figure out how you can help them. It's really easy. You just listen, and then as you're listening, be thinking instead of being an entrepreneur is such a selfish profession, because you're constantly thinking about yourself and your problems, and so it's very hard for us to not do that unless somebody guilts us into it, like I'm doing right now. So as you're talking to people, just listen and think how can I help this person? How can I help this person? And sometimes you could just say oh, it's really they're talking. Oh, what are you building? Oh, I'm doing. Oh, that's really nice. How can I help you? Just cut them off. Say oh, what can I do to help you? And let's just get to the point. And it's not transactional. It's genuine. Can I help you? Maybe I can't, but maybe I can. So please meet somebody and help them.
So there's, obviously there's somewhat of a Cambrian explosion, right, in entrepreneurship and startups, which is awesome, but in the last 5 or 10 or 20 years, right? But it seems as though there's still an underutilization of available resources. So there's, millions of square feet of office space, there's hundreds of thousands of people looking for better jobs, there's billions of dollars of capital available for competent ideas and projects. There's lots of intellectual property and opportunities. So I guess what would you say is the holdup? Why is that not compiling properly? Why is it not being orchestrated into an effective, useful product or service? There's opportunities but not being developed, and I guess, is that because they just aren't viable, or is that because there's not enough people to promote them or work them? I guess what are the primary barriers or obstacles for those resources compiling, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing is that actually there are fewer entrepreneurs today than there were 20 years ago, and you would never think that's true, but actually it's a quite real decline. It's it's over a very long time. The numbers are going down. The startups in general, I remember when the social network movie came out in 2012, when we went and saw the midnight showing, I remember walking out there thinking oh man, startups just peaked right now tonight. It's no, totally wrong. So I think, one of the things that limits is where people live and where companies are. More and more companies are starting outside of California. Historically, 90% of venture capital has gone into California, New York, and Massachusetts, those states. There's a company yesterday that sold for $8 billion in Provo, Utah, called Qualtrics, started by a guy I went to college with. He built this amazing company in Provo, and that just wasn't ever happening before. So I think, one thing that's hopefully changing is the ability, like our company's fully distributed, so we have everybody works remotely. It takes a certain type of person to be able to do that. But like, if people will adapt their skills to that, or they'll naturally like that, like you could be great and you can live in Albuquerque and work for a great company. I think, I look at the jobs that we have and the jobs that Google has or Airbnb has. I mean, a lot of it is people just don't have the skills for the jobs that are needed too. So it's, are you living in the right place? Do you have the right skill set? Which most do not, and college isn't helping with that because, I don't know, I didn't really learn anything in college that was useful for my work today. And so, we've got to solve that. We've got to get better education, the right kind of education. We've got to give people opportunities where they are so they don't have to move and rent a crappy apartment in San Francisco, which is happening more and more. And there's, great businesses popping up here too. But I don't know, those would be the two main things I would say.
More questions? John?
The startup grind being in so many cities, do you see patterns of startups in certain cities, or do you see these similar ideas across the board?
Oh man, if I had like $1 for every driving Uber type company, there's we go in these waves. So for a while it was incubators.
Okay.
Oh man, I'm doing an incubator. I'm gonna invest in companies. Do you ever invested in anything? Do you even have stocks? And it's no, but this, I'm getting in. It's jeez. I had this real estate. This is 2011. I had this real estate guy one time. He's this crappy commercial real estate broker, and he was I'm starting an incubator. I'm well, what's your added value? I will get people into their real estate. I was dude, first of all, you suck at that. No, nobody needs that. That's so easy to find. I can call 20 people to do that. Anyways, so it was incubators for a while. Then it was Groupon ideas for a while. Tons of Groupon ideas. Everybody's got a deal site thing going on. Then it was the self-driving thing. Everybody's got a self-driving startup. Everybody.
Yeah.
Freak. I mean, I don't know. What is it now?
Blockchain.
Oh, blockchain. Oh, gosh. The blockchain freaking Bitcoin startups are the worst right now. Well, luckily there was this huge crash. And now everybody's kind of quieting down about it a little bit because Chris was, I mean, geez. A year ago, the Bitcoin startup was just insane. It is so annoying. To see people just chase whatever is shiny and hot. It's if it's shiny and hot today, you already missed it, bro. It's done. It's cooked. Put a fork in it. I have this guy that I know that came to see me recently who is a really nice guy, but he always chases the shiny new thing. All of these things I've just said, he's done many of them. Not one of them, many of them. And he came to me the other day, and I haven't seen him in a long time, and he said, dude, I'm now left with nothing. I've wasted all my money, I've wasted all my contact, he's just chased, and there's just no thought to it. It's just it's hot, it's cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hear tons of that crap, constantly. Oh man, to no end. So, anyways, I'm sorry to be so negative about Bitcoin. You should really start a Bitcoin foundation based out of Geneva, Switzerland, and it's really changing the world and doing a better place. It's a foundation. Well, yeah. Actually, the coins are owned by a Delaware company. We're actually based in Panama, but we have a subsidiary that does have some Delaware stuff. But most of it's a Panama thing. But we also have this foundation in Geneva, and it's just really incredible technology. I mean, you just wouldn't believe. What are the tokens used for? well, you know, we're going to figure that out. And smartest people in the world. So we're going to figure this out once we get all the money in and everything kind of comes, and we'll cash it out real quick, but then we will really develop a really cool usage for the coin. Bro. No. And I say bro because women are not dumb enough to do this. Always men. I mean, so dumb. So, sorry. But thank you for helping me relive the last few
Let's go ahead.
decades.
All right. So I have
You
this
got
really,
another question?
Yeah, you know, I have this really good
You and I
idea.
haven't talked enough.
No, we haven't. So it's Uber for cats. So we all have cats, right? No, it's really, you guys just don't see it. You guys just don't see it. So it's AI technology is built into it already. So the cars always take the most optimal route to pick up the cats. So I want to talk to investors, and my plan is when I go to events like this, I bum rush the investor and I throw a business card in his hand and I say, "Can I pick your brain?" So my first question is that a good solution? If it's not, what's a really good way? Because a lot of us are looking for investment or looking for help, looking for meetings. What's a good way to kind of approach investors or approach people that could potentially help us? That's my first question. Second question.
Well, that was actually a good question.
Yeah. So the second question.
Coming from the Uber for cats.
Uber for cats. Yeah. AI. Is
UC Davis?
Yeah. It's very, it's a very theoretical program. And the second question is, everyone who thinks that's a bad idea just is a hater and doesn't understand, just can't see my vision. So what's a good way to take feedback and maybe listen to feedback? Like, it's really hard, I'm guessing, to kind of give out feedback. It's hard when your friend comes to you with an idea as brilliant as Uber for Cats, and maybe it's not there. How do you give out feedback without hurting someone's feelings and just being honest?
So the investor, first of all, I have done that before I knew any better. So, if you've done that, welcome to my club. When I hear somebody ask if I can pick your brain, I think of The Walking Dead. And I'm like, I don't want my brain picked. It sounds awful. It's disgusting. It sounds totally unsanitary and just gross. So, have a purpose, have a reason, and if you're running up to an investor who's after an event on stage, you've already lost. Because actually, the only reason to go talk to an investor at an event is to talk to them before they get bum rushed. I did this just the other day. I went to an event, and I went for 5 minutes. I went to talk to this one person who was going to speak. I grabbed them, and then I left. I didn't even stay to hear them speak, which is not very cool of me, but it was I had a very specific purpose. I knew exactly who they were. I had a good ask. It was tailored for them. It was targeted. I'd done my homework, and my 2 minutes with them was on point, and he knew I'd been thoughtful about it, and he said that he would meet with me. And I said, and anyways, I didn't ask to pick his brain. So just do your homework, be thoughtful. I'll spend an hour or two on an email that's 2 little paragraphs. And I just every word, every sentence, the subject line, everything is so tight. And people will respond if they see that, because almost nobody does that. So it's a pretty easy bar to get over. In terms of your idea, your really cool idea that you have, at the UC Davis incubator, that's you're winning all the entrepreneur competitions there, I'm sure. No, UC Davis is a great school. I've just personally spent way too much of my own money on my ideas. So I don't have an ego at all anymore about my ideas. So the thing, you can't ask your friends and your family about your ideas because they won't tell you the truth. They will absolutely not tell you the truth. They will lie to you. And then when you're gone, they will freaking rag on you about what terrible idea it is you're working on. And no one will ever tell you. And so what you have to do is you have to go to people that will tell you the truth. And I always find that and this is what Todd and I talked about years ago, was if they'll write you a check, then they really do like it. You don't even have to cash the check. Just get them to write it. Just have them write it and hand it back to them if you want. But if somebody will pay for it, then it's a problem they're willing to solve. Or what you say is this the other thing, is like when somebody says like, you say, hey, what do you think about this? Are you the right customer? You're the right customer, okay, what do you think about this idea? And they say like, I like it. Say, okay, well, it's gonna be $100 a year, but because you're one of my first 100 customers, I'm gonna give you a great deal. You just pay $20 a year, and I promise I will not cash your check. You just write me a check today, I will not cash a check, I'll put it in my drawer, and then, you know, when the product goes live, I will email you to make sure you still want to pay for it, and then I will cash your check. And then I'll send it back to you. Will you write me a check right now for $20? And then you just like get your pad out, and you just like watch their pupils in their eyes, and then you just shut up and you just listen. And that's when you get the truth. That's truth time. And I've done this many times, the hard way, and I've done it times where I didn't listen or didn't ask. But one time I was building this product for like 6 months, and I'd spent probably like $150,000 on it, my own money, with people working on it, maybe $100,000. And I was on a call with this guy who was supposed to be like a perfect customer for us, and we told him we were going to give him this really great offer or whatever. We were going to do so much work for him to like make it even more awesome, like things outside of technology, like just to like make it perfect. And we're like, look, this is like, we're going to charge $1,000 a year for this, but we're going to do all this extra stuff for you, which is going to be worth way more than $1,000. Like, it was so obvious. And he's like, guys, I can't pay $1,000 a year for this. Like, I wouldn't pay that. It's not worth it to me. And we're like, okay, well, what would you pay today? And he's like today? Like, yeah, like you have to write us a check today, and we'll get started today for you. He's like, I mean, if you need a check today, like, I will pay you $20 a month. So that's, $240 a year. And I was like listening on this call, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I have to get out of this right now. And that was it. Like, if he was something that was probably worth tens of thousands of dollars, if he could only see $20 a month for it, I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. So, but you gotta just like force people to tell you the truth. And usually, like, if you ask them for money, that's a good force of punch.
You have a question?
Yeah, if there was one big thing with Bevy right now that you wish you could fix, would it be?
I wish I had more customers. Yeah, revenue does fix everything. Yeah. So I wish I hadn't waited so long to be the only salesperson in the company. And I always wish that. I always wish I had invested more in sales than I have in every company I've ever worked in. There's almost no downside other than picking the wrong salespeople, which I have done, and that's going to be pretty bad. But yeah, I wish I invested more in sales, and I think all of my companies would be better off.
Okay, one more question? I'll shut everybody up. All right, last question then. Who's your favorite superhero?
You gotta pick a Marvel one.
Is that right?
Yeah, you go.
It has to be Iron Man.
Well, can I see what you have before I say? I don't know, man. I think am I overthinking this?
Yeah.
I mean, Bane was pretty cool.
You're a main character. Villain.
He's influenced me. Yeah, he's a villain, but
And Roy, too.
I mean,
The biohacker.
who?
The biohacker.
I don't know. Christian Bale, Batman is pretty good.
Usually people say Batman or Iron Man.
Yeah.
So I have to say though, you're a big hero for us. Not only for starting startup, right? I actually will say it has really impacted a lot of people, and also you're a big hero for finding traffic to come here and visit our session. So anyway, what I did is we actually made a video game.
Wow.
It only works on Android, so you gotta get an Android phone, and you are
Thank you so much. That is
Wow.
so
So this is global.
How thoughtful is that? Will I ever forget this?
No.
I'll never forget this. So,
I love it.
yeah, how cool. Thank you so much.
So it is Global Entrepreneurship Week, and Laura, did you want to say anything, or we have a lot of stuff going on?